Travis, really
Freddie.
great to have you here on the Build Your A Team podcast. It's been a few years since we met, and I
It
am
has.
excited to dive deeper into discussing just your past, your accomplishments, and how you think about building teams and AI, quite frankly.
Sure.
So, for the rest of you listening, the purpose of the podcast is to share how veteran entrepreneurs and business leaders build their exceptional teams. Whether their success comes from strategic analysis, intuition, or pure luck, right? Because there's a lot of us that go through that. So, um, Travis, I like to usually start by kind of bragging on the folks who are on the show, and there's a lot for us to brag about for you. You are an Air Force veteran. You spent 6 years as a air traffic controller. Pretty cool. And then you started going to the private sector and worked in consulting and technology leadership roles. And you served as a COO in in uh, in a couple of different companies, Servio Consulting,
Yeah.
and now you are the CEO, managing partner and CEO of Provisio. Um, as a quick kind of highlight of what you guys have been accomplished, Provisio 2020, Travis, you've been recognized as a notable veteran executive by Crain's in 2020. And for the past 4 years, Provisio has been on the Inc. 5000 list and subsequently the IVMF's Veteran 100 list.
Yes.
And in 2024, Cranes included you guys and highlighted you guys as being the best places to work in
Yes.
Chicago. What an awesome recognition there.
Thanks. Thank.
Yeah,
It's a testament to my teammates.
agreed. Because yeah, your teammates and leadership really builds all that. You know, in one of the podcasts, you shared that you're a lifelong learner. So what are you currently working on or learning today that you can share with us?
Yeah. True story. I mean, I went directly into the military, and after those 6 years, had married my wife very early on, and going to be celebrating 35 years here in 26. And um, we had children. So when I got out, it was time to go to work. And unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to go to school. My wife and I both value education, formal education, but um, quite frankly, I've had my teeth kicked in for a lot of years,
Mm,
just getting better. And I think that getting into technology outside of getting specific degrees, I was really learning on the fly and learning on my own in order to keep up with what was there once I got out of the service. So for me today, I think like everyone, it's all about AI. And for me specifically, I'm looking at ways that agentic AI is going to have impact in health and human services and specifically reshaping how social services are accessed and delivered.
that's awesome. Well, the last part here before we jump in and ask about what does Provisio do? What do you do, right, with AI? But
Sure.
Provisio, you guys are Salesforce's largest consultancy focusing exclusively on the human services and social sector organizations. So you've with your 100 plus 100, you said 120 people.
Somewhere in there.
Yep, in your company, you've grown this amazing capability. Can you tell us what you guys do in layman's terms?
Sure. I had had a background in a lot of different technologies and consulting over the years, primarily IT consulting, some management consulting. And when we started Provisio, me along with my partner, it was really, I had started years before of consolidating down to a specific platform that I felt could really address many needs quickly. So, time to value, reduction of risk, all those things that an organization would be looking for. And Salesforce was the platform that I landed on at that time and still feel confident about today.
Mm,
But to be honest, before founding Provisio, understanding that just being focused on a technology stack is not enough in terms of expertise. So was doing a lot of work in intellectual and developmental disabilities and seeing some of the shortcomings in terms of technology supports for case managers and program managers and leadership teams, and decided that it wasn't enough just to have the expertise, that you had to have the subject matter expertise. And so it was an easy decision to focus on what I felt at that time and still believe are some of our most vulnerable populations in the United States. And so my partner and I set out on a mission to really address and empower human services organizations, both public sector, primarily state and local government, and nonprofit organizations through people, process, and technology.
So, so you guys implement Salesforce in public sectors and in nonprofit organizations. Is that the focus?
That is the focus, although it's not just as much about the technology, Freddie. It's probably the easiest part of the equation, really focusing on alignment between strategic planning, what measurement looks like, what do the outcomes look like, and how to align organizational change and readiness there. So we focus on that front end, which are all non-technical services. And then, of course, we have the Salesforce chops to deliver on those specific solutions. And we build accelerators on top of Salesforce that are specific to things like housing and shelter and workforce development and aging and early childhood. So when you think about the arc of an individual, from just being little ones to the time where we're counting on those little ones as we age, that really follows the arc of the services and the technologies that we provide. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that, grounding all of that and pinning all of that is data services. So from a data services perspective, as an underpinning, we look at things such as data strategy, AI readiness, and then, of course, all the difficult integrations and big data that goes along with that. So people ultimately have the knowledge and just not the understanding of what the data looks like.
So am I right to say that the Salesforce implementation is only like a sliver? I mean, the rest is advising on strategy and data analytics and implementation. It's not related to Salesforce.
Yeah, and I will say that those types of non-technical services are cornerstones to success for our customers. The technical implementation is still split right down the middle for us. It is the underpinnings that allow us to deliver for our customers and is also the vast majority of our revenue. But that vast majority of revenue doesn't necessarily always equate to success for a client if they don't have the organizational readiness or the strategic alignment, or don't really understand their own data and what that means for them in terms of measurement and outcomes and getting better.
What are you doing well in Provisio or yourself that you can pinpoint that's allowing you to be so successful and allowing a culture that is worthy of a best place to work? What are you guys doing so well, you think?
Yeah, I think we've started out as a very close-knit group, and I think that we've had some really good strategic long-term teammates that have come on board that have been really centered in mission. And I think that has really demonstrated for both our clients and the firm our commitment. It's easy to get behind, those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. It's easy to work towards ending homelessness. It's easy to want early childhood to be successful for kiddos. So there's never been a challenge in terms of recruitment of individuals to the firm. I think that I try to keep things very simple. When we look at our core values as an organization that leads to our culture, at the top of those is, when I think about the things that I can control or any individual can control. At the top of that list is always attitude and effort. And it's easy to be, united by mission when you have good attitudes and tremendous effort. And ultimately, there's client success because we feel strongly that, without that client success, there is no Provisio.
Yes. How were you able to build this, this focus and this mission to work on these worthy missions, right? These big problems, these social issues that everyone is struggling with, like homelessness. I mean, how did you get to this
Yeah.
point where you can do this?
Yeah, I'd started a firm in 2003 focusing in natural language processing. And it was more of a technology that we were looking to find ways that that technology could best be leveraged in the marketplace. And moving into consulting in 2006 and doing a lot of great work in the public sector, state and local government, which I was passionate about solving many of those challenges, as well as being a good steward of taxpayer money. I found that you can't be an expert in everything. And I use this analogy all the time. I don't think you ever said it, Freddie. And that is, in middle school, waking up and saying, man, I can't wait to get old and be mediocre at a bunch of stuff, right? And so that has followed with us. And it was about 2014, 2015, I started just seeing things differently at that point in my life and career, and started doing work in intellectual and developmental disabilities. In terms of, strategically, I actually hired a consultant to come work with me and who is now my partner today, which has been, one of the first times in my career where somebody was willing to work as hard as myself to get that. And I really feel like we were doing this work in intellectual and developmental disabilities. And one of the aha moments was looking across the spectrum. And there's something called person-centered care and planning. And we were doing this as a statewide effort. And as somebody, if I had intellectual developmental disabilities, I should have a choice in what my life looks like. And what we quickly realized is that without the data and information, Travis isn't going to have choices, and Travis is going to work where the services are provided or live there. And that wasn't enough. And so it was really with that opportunity, and started looking at bigger opportunities. So think about working with a Catholic Charities or other large, and Easter Seals and other large national organizations that they're tackling really tough stuff. And it just started snowballing from there, where we were getting deeper into different types of needs or causes that were out there that have led us to being on the cutting edge of housing and shelter solutions, to aging, early childhood. And it really has just kind of come from that point of view, and which has really led us to our BHAG today, which is improving the lives of 100 million people in the next 10 years. But it started with just trying to fix one thing, and led to, all of these things need to be addressed. And we're doing that.
That's cool. Wow, you want to impact just under a third of the American population and improve the lives there. So it sounds like to me that like these opportunities to solve these tough problems, it kind of came with the right connections to the clients, right? The clients, or they came to you and said, "I have a tough problem. I need you to solve this." Uh, is that right?
Yeah, it is. It was working with those clients that deliver certain types of services. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Salesforce. Our partnership with Salesforce, they are a marketing and outreach juggernaut.
Mm.
And so many of the opportunities that we've had to be helpful to nonprofit and public sector human services organizations have come through our partner with Salesforce, where Salesforce markets to and starts conversations with a client like that, and then ultimately will look for the appropriate partner.
Mm.
to come in and execute and deliver with specific solutions. And I'm very proud that Provisio is a trusted partner that will come in and deliver on those types of solutions. And it could be a myriad of different cause areas. I will tell you today that we spend a lot of our time in behavioral health organizations across the country, as well as other supports that if you just read the news, you understand exactly what's needed out there.
What did you you talked about just starting off in learning disabilities, right? The population with learning disabilities. What did you envision Provisio to be at that time, right?
Yeah.
And with your partner, and what is and how 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 much better is it now?
Yeah, I think at that time, envisioning it, one of the first organizations we worked with, there's something, in any type of human services or social services, there's program and case management and quality improvement and a lot of these kind of standard roles and responsibilities within an organization. And the technology has really been lacking over the years to the point where our first developmental disability organization we were working with to perform their case management was actually a law enforcement case
Oh
management
wow.
system that was in a closet, that was woefully under-maintained, and it wasn't the fault of the organization itself. They were delivering great work, but I will tell you that every social worker out there wants to be working with people and not technology.
Mm,
And so for us, it was how do we better improve the lives of the individuals receiving services while ensuring that a program or case manager or anyone engaged in delivering those services has a better quality of life themselves in doing so. And most importantly, that there are data points to improve the types of services or unmet needs that are out there, such as looking at things like social determinants of health to understand as a whole, how's an individual really being served? So that was really where we saw ourselves back then, and nowadays it's still the same
right.
mission, but on a little bit different scale as we start to get into agentic AI and other technologies.
Man, Travis, just listening to you and hearing you out, we have to work together somehow. I mean, this is what you're doing is so impactful, right? And it just rallies people to want to improve things and support things. So that's really cool to hear. So you have these subject matter, you have these teams that are tackling each of these problems, and they're building solutions, advising, etc. Where do you as a CEO find yourself spending the most amount of time doing what?
Yeah. Well, I'll say my favorite time that I spend is with customers and prospects.
Mm.
That's where I'd like to be spending more time. Unfortunately, there is also accounting and legal and all the other stuff that isn't great fun but necessary.
Mm.
Um, we run EOS here at Provisio. Nick Bradfield was our implementer and still our facilitator. And in running EOS, I found myself focusing more from a vision perspective and how to improve and do better.
Mm.
I have always been probably maybe to an extent too much at times willing to roll up my sleeves and dig into an opportunity, any of those things to support my teammates. You won't hear us talk about employees or reports or anything like that. I
Mm.
prefer to have a flatter organization. I know everybody needs structure, but I don't perceive my role as any more important than some of my other teammates.
Mm.
We just have different responsibilities, but we all have the same thing to do, and that's to be supportive of each other in support of our clients and mission.
Big shout out to Nick Bradfield. Great guy.
He is a great dude.
He's an amazing guy. And actually, when you were saying that, you remind me of that CEO in that book, Get a Grip.
Yeah,
That CEO who's really good at sales and visionary, but then he likes to dive in and
yeah,
and mess with other things. So that's probably that kind of story for you.
Well, and I also think, I'm big on servant leadership,
Mm,
and I probably cleaned out the coffee maker this morning, took the trash down, and did all the things that I'm also, if you can't do the small things, you surely can't do the big things.
I love it. I love it, Travis. You mentioned your story. So like, the you mentioned the story of how you met your partner. He was a
Yeah.
consulting. Can you expound upon that and just how did that come to be?
Yeah. As you had mentioned, I was the, managing principal and COO for a IT consulting firm here in Chicago. Did a lot of great work and loved the work, but I felt from a scale perspective, I wanted to start a Salesforce practice. And so I left at the end of 2014, and it was just me. And so I started selling, and within 4 months or so, I was getting some good traction in some local government and K through 12 and
Mm,
some other education institutions. And it was time to deliver work. And I could PM and BA and all those other things, but the real technical implementation I couldn't. So I started the practice within a 20-year-old Oracle partner that was a great partner to Oracle, and the owners were looking to diversify. So they brought me in and allowed me to start the practice under their umbrella.
mm,
And so I was bringing on work, and I had no one to deliver it technically. So they had a recruiter that gave me a few names of folks that they found, and I reached out and set up a meeting with the person that is now my partner, and went and had that meeting. Very level-headed, adept, all those things, and interestingly, she would say that I assumed that she was coming to work with me, like an assumed close. That wasn't the case. I went back and talked to our HR team at that firm and said that I'd had a wonderful conversation. Could I get the subcontractor agreement to send over? And that was interpreted as this individual was coming to work
yeah,
with us. And it was not my intention, but it ended up that way. And we've been running hip to hip, for a decade now. So it's been a wonderful, it's a wonderful thing when you have complementary skill sets. I see a lot of organizations that have like-minded, whether they're partners or owners. And, for instance, you have a bunch of great technical group, but can't sell. Or you have a bunch of sales folks or leadership team members that have never delivered anything in their life, but have
mm,
sold a lot of things.
mm.
Those aren't great combinations and probably aren't going to work real well. So I think that my partner, Erica Cox, and I have been a great team, and have been surrounded by even better teammates.
That's really cool. How, I'd love to learn a little bit more about that partnership and dynamics and just working with somebody that works as hard as you do, right?
Yeah.
In that relationship. But, another question jumps out at me, like, how the hell were you able to sell consulting as a one-man show and get all these clients?
Yeah. Um, I think I had relationships at Salesforce, and they knew I was competent and have always delivered. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened. But when it came time to deliver, I went out and got people I trusted
Mm,
and would work with. And it's always been that way.
sure.
Here at Provisio, I probably half the firm are folks that I've known from the last 20 plus years in the
Mm,
ecosystem, that maybe we partnered on things, maybe they were family members. We've had, a tremendous number of family members, and just associates over the years that have led to a great foundation of stability, which I believe is very important in any organization. Um, but it's been wonderful to be a part of and to watch those people grow, and
yeah.
most importantly, deliver success for our customers.
So how did you and Erica, after you guys partnered, you know, was there a key hire you made, a leadership hire, or someone that really just changed the trajectory of where you guys were heading?
Yeah, I mean, from a key hire perspective, if I look over my career, Freddie, it's working in partnership with Erica, because without somebody like that, we wouldn't have been able to grow and deliver the way that we have. I've looked at other teammates that are probably non-traditional types of folks that I feel have led to tremendous stability. And, I've looked at hiring folks over the years. Like I'm not bashful about saying at times I feel like we're a little bit like from the land of misfit toys. That I think that looking at character above quals, like you can teach skill sets, right? You can teach technical skills, but you can't teach character. And so we've always looked at that, and it's a great reason why I think that we've been successful over the years with a multitude of different hires. For instance, we don't have much sales turnover, which is crazy within any organization, but specifically within Provisio. And that's not to say we haven't had some lack of success in some instances, but they've been wonderful people, and that we've all exited gracefully, and all the things that really matter with, we treat all of our clients with empathy, but I think it's also important to function with empathy within your own organization and your own teammates.
Why, when you do a deep dive, why have you not had any turnover in sales?
Yeah, I think we work really hard at it in the Salesforce ecosystem. I would say the vast majority of partners were started by technical folks that probably grew from there. We really wanted to grow a world-class sales and marketing team that would really do well by our customer base with a level of expertise that is not just, I'm not big on peddlers. Like peddling anything in sales is no good. So having a deep understanding of the industry, the technology solutions, what it's like to work as a teammate, what it's like to work as a partner with Salesforce, all very important things. Very interesting. I think one of my early hires was my professional mentor, somebody that took a chance on me and really taught me how to sell back in the day. And he was here for probably 2 years or so, and it just didn't work. And I still think he's the best salesperson that I've ever been around, but it just didn't work out. And he's moved on to be wildly successful in his next stop. But there are times where it doesn't work. But I think those relationships and how you handle those things when they don't work are equally as important as when you're bringing people to the firm to start that journey.
You are a class act, Travis. You have always been, right. You've just been a gentleman and a scholar. I mean, just a stand up guy. What has your childhood been like? Like, how did you where did you learn character?
Yeah, character is probably a nice way to put it. I was born in Central Illinois, and both teen parents, and my parents divorced when I was 5, and my mom met a gentleman, and we moved to the south side of Chicago. But as I was growing up, I got to spend summers and holidays down on the farm in Central Illinois. But at the same time, during the school year, met wonderful people with varied backgrounds on the south side of Chicago. And I think it served me well. And it's almost comical to hear you reference me as scholarly because I was a really bad,
Glasses.
really bad student. And so, and if I'm, honestly, Freddie, when I went into the military as an air traffic controller and didn't wash out and made it through, it was the first time I felt really great about myself and accomplishment of anything of an
Really?
intellectual standpoint, and excelled at it and loved it. But I would say that I always had stability, even though my life was much different down on the farm than it was on the south side of Chicago. But I think that helped me and continues to help me every day in terms of seeing people from different viewpoints, that their life experiences are probably much different than mine. But I also see things that some of the challenges that I see, whether it's on the south side of Chicago, San Francisco, the Bronx, you name the urban area, our rural communities have the same problems, right? Lack of access to opportunities, higher education, jobs, drug abuse, broken homes, all those types of things. There are so many similarities between what we see in urban America as well as rural America, and I feel fortunate at this point in my life that that we can help to make things better in those areas, and
Yeah.
technology just happens to be one part of that.
I mean, yeah, that's an amazing job, right? You know, just leveraging technology to solve difficult problems to make the lives better. That'll be a dream job. Just and this is how people who are so engaged, that's how they think about their profession, and that's how you inspire others to follow you to do the same thing. So that's really cool. When you talk about your CCT experience, how do you feel like that experience shaped your approach to starting a business or building a team?
Yeah, a lot of people would want to say, gosh, an air traffic controller wasn't that stressful and all those types of things. And I'll say it's nothing like being behind in your numbers late in the fourth quarter trying to make your numbers. I've actually said, can you imagine a job where there are guidelines and rules, and when you give instructions, the other folks receiving those instructions have to follow those instructions?
Mm,
And when you plug into a position in the tower I was, and when you unplug from that position, all your responsibilities stop. So when I think about my adulthood outside of my service, you know, it's been really hard in comparison to being an air traffic controller.
mm,
That said, um, being in a tower, there are generally three positions in any tower. There's a local controller, ground controller, and flight data or clearance. And those people come from lots of different backgrounds. You've all been through the same training,
mm,
and you're all dependent on each other. And you have different roles to play, but you had to be proficient at each one of the positions.
mm.
And I feel like as Provisio, it's no different. The one minus that we have are probably the determined guidelines that other parties have to follow when we make those recommendations. That doesn't happen, as you all know. But I think that working through things with structure, and I also believe that making decisions quickly, that as an air traffic controller and local, when you're trying to get somebody departed and you have arrivals and lots of different aircraft types and speeds and all the sequencing that has to take place in coordination, the worst thing you could do is not make a decision. So it's kind of a fail fast approach, but I do believe in making timely decisions because you can recover from those timely decisions. You cannot recover from decisions that aren't being made.
Yeah, that's a fascinating perspective because when you're in the tower, you are in control. You
Yeah,
make the decision, people will follow. They have
yeah,
to follow, right?
yeah.
But in business, in the real world, when we transition to being a civilian, it doesn't we don't it doesn't work like that,
There's
right?
no SOP or whatever it is in
Right.
Army terms
There's
or
no UCMJ, there's no regulations, right?
no. Yeah,
There is none.
yeah,
And you have to really win over by influence and
yes,
inspiration and clarity and transparency and
yeah.
leadership, essentially.
And demonstrated leadership, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I think we've all been around some of those NCOs or officers for that matter that, were in for 20 years, never made rank, and retiring once they probably had to.
Mm,
And I think um, there's a level of frustration, I think, for probably in the Air Force world, every young airman that's looking and saying, why? Of course, everybody respects rank and chain of command, but I think it can be disappointing sometimes And I think that it's no different in business. And you have to prove that leadership, regardless of title or all those other things. And I feel strongly that there is no leadership unless somebody's willing to follow you, right? So to lead or call yourself in leadership, there is no such thing unless people are willing to follow you.
Yes. Yes. A man without followers is a man just going for a walk, right? Or
Right,
just taking a
right.
walk, right?
Willingly follow you, right?
Yes. Yes. You're right. A leader without followers is a man taking a walk. That's what it was. Anyway, well, shifting gears a little bit, I'd love to get into a little bit of your expertise in AI and data. You said in a previous interview, you said if you're not making decisions with data, it's just record keeping, right? And
Yes.
you said you need to have a data strategy before you have an AI strategy. How do you think about this?
Yeah, that was actually a quote by there's a gentleman by the name of Peter Coffey.
Mm,
He's one of the chief, I don't know if his title is like executive vice president of strategy or
mm,
something along those lines, but
mm,
he's a very insightful, forward-looking individual. I would
mm,
encourage everyone to follow Peter Coffey.
mm,
And so it think about the time people have invested and delivered on quote unquote modernization, right? We modernize, and I don't think at times there's a general purpose outside of replatforming, right? We're in digital transformation.
mm.
Well, what does that really mean, digital transformation? Does that mean moving from a legacy platform to a new platform to have the same process and behaviors, right? Which is really where that quote comes from, right?
Isn't it just
And
paper to digital? Like if you think about it that way,
sure, which that's
but
not going to
still
get you too
requiring
far.
different processes, right?
Right,
Right.
right. And so when we think about all the discussion around AI and whether that's it started out really as predictive, generative, now it's agentic, and without with any AI approach, without your data being right, there is no approach. So all these organizations, especially in the nonprofit world or even the public sector, certainly those in the financial services or manufacturing or retail or some of these other industries, perhaps have deeper staffs and technologies and dollars to go after and leverage this. I do think that from an equitable access to technology, AI and agentic AI is going to revolutionize the haves and the have-nots in terms of technical depth. But the first order of business is having your data put together and understanding what that is so you can understand how to leverage it. And so that kind of comes from, early on in our conversation around data strategy, understanding what's there and organizing that, and then coming together and looking at AI and AI readiness and what does that look like? Because whether it's being used internally or externally, which is where I see as well as just as much potential, the data has to be right. And I think right now there's a lot of discussion around what is permissible, especially within health and human services, around HIPAA and PII, or personally identifiable information, and looking at what those standards are and how AI can be used. Because summarizing case notes, things like that for case and program managers are one thing. I've made lots of mistakes, Freddie, but the one thing that I think that I've historically made is not thinking big enough, that I've always not thought big enough.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at what the opportunity is in AI today, the only comparison I could make is probably in the late 90s when Y2K and the internet, and it was exploding. And, anybody that could build a website was suddenly a person of influence or something along
Exactly,
those
right?
lines. And I think it's pretty close today when it comes to AI. everybody's still figuring this out. It is the Wild West. But I feel confident in the positioning of Salesforce and Agentforce and looking holistically at organizations and in our world holistically at individuals and their families to best provide them supports. So, I'm a big believer in looking at technology solutions that can scale or as fast as or large as the problems themselves. There's lots of great technologies individually that are out there. But when I look at what agentic AI looks like in the future, it is one where I think about how do we speed access and remove barriers to that access for services in our communities. Sounds pretty simple, right? But at the end of the day, I think agentic AI is going to play a very large part in that. Access at times where in the human services world, generally there's some type of intake or intake coordinator that looks at the types of services that Travis might be seeking. Of course, once I seek those services, there is, the eligibility requirements around that, and maybe it's across 180 different programs. It's difficult. And so I think the thing that we're missing when it comes to agentic is that I'm going to reverse and let's just say Freddie's the intake coordinator. Freddie didn't show up today, right? Or Freddie had a long morning to get into the office or into his home office, and Freddie's not really in a great mood today. So I want you to think about an agent that could do that type of assistance for Freddie, answer my initial questions as Travis is seeking services, but that agent's going to answer those questions with empathy. It's going to be consistent every single time. It's going to know what programs and services that Travis would be eligible for before proposing any types of services. So this is not to replace Freddie, but it is certainly there to assist Freddie in getting services to Travis as soon as possible. So that is, I believe, a future because there isn't a nonprofit or public sector entity out there that is ever going to be overstaffed. So it is only going to get thinner. And I think the need for specific data and outcomes, I referenced social determinants of health earlier, that's only going to grow.
Is that I'm sure, there's hundreds, thousands of other use cases for AI and agentic AI.
Sure.
But is that the premise of how you think about it? Like how to expedite or be more efficient with the customer interface?
Yeah.
Is that the biggest premise of how you're using agentic AI right now?
Yeah, we have some wonderful examples of clients. A few weeks ago, Salesforce held their Dreamforce, which is their big annual conference. And we were very fortunate that Provisio's client in behavioral health, the largest behavioral health organization in California, was the featured keynote for the nonprofit. And so they have demonstrated unbelievable use cases leveraging AI. The first nonprofit organization in the Salesforce ecosystem to do that. And I feel very fortunate that we were a part of that. But there are so many different use cases. I think to simplify things, Freddie, as a social worker, I'm not interested in technology necessarily if it's not going to help me spend more time with individuals in the community, right? You could use so many different use cases. I'm just going to say I'm an individual that's working in the Tenderloin district in San Francisco, dealing with one of the toughest homeless challenges in our country. How is Provisio going to deliver for that individual on a mobile device more answers more quickly to get someone into a shelter as quickly as possible and surrounding services to try and get that individual the supports that they need to get them off the streets? Like when I think of AI, it doesn't replace the individual that's in the streets in the Tenderloin district doing the really hard stuff. It's how do we get those supports and get that individual housed as quickly as possible with support services that are necessary so they don't return in the next few days.
I get it. So going back to this, the whole AI and data, right? Data first and the AI. For
Yeah.
somebody like me, I think about, hey, I look at data, I go, ask AI.
Yeah.
Ask
Yeah.
AI what my
Yeah.
data strategy is. How do I
Yeah.
organize data? Is
Yeah.
that is that where am I lacking when I'm thinking that way?
I don't think you're lacking. The data itself has to be there, right?
Hmm.
And whether you go back to an old database, a data warehouse, a data lake, big
Oh,
data,
I
all the
understand.
great stuff, right?
I
We
understand.
have
Right.
to co-locate lots of disparate data
Got it.
to get the most benefit. But I think what you're describing, Freddie, is that for years, if you've heard the term data visualization, right? Or I have to be able to see the data, it's it was making a presentation of the information itself, right? It was presenting the data for you to interpret what that might mean. And I'm not saying at this point that it's that's all over with, because it's not. We all need to know where those things stand. But I think that the big difference is, think of AI allowing you to know what that data means.
Mm.
Not understand it, not see it, but to know and have confidence. This is what it's telling me. Because one of the biggest challenges is that very few organizations can afford data scientists and people of this nature that can really make sense of that data for an organization, present it, because they know, but you don't as a user. Where we're headed is that with AI, we will be able to have that know that's presented to you. That doesn't replace data scientists or statistics majors, anybody like that, but it does get that type of data into the hands of somebody like yourself, and you can know what that means, not just be presented with it.
Yes. I mean, it just clicked when you were talking about that, where to have the you need to first have the data strategy, meaning you need to have good data coming in. Like garbage
Yeah,
in is garbage out. So you need to first make sure that's clean and
yeah,
that fits and that all that disparate data is actually, is actually accurate at least.
yeah.
You're doing the
And
right thing,
and
right?
what data are you missing that you need?
Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair. Okay, now that we nerded out a little bit about data and AI, I'm I'd like to understand a little bit just about your cultural influence, right? Can you tell us how Provisio is organized right now, and how do you maintain that culture over the organizational structures?
Yeah. As I had mentioned, we run EOS.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a standard accountability chart that mirrors other EOS implementations, from
Got it.
the visionary, integrator, and then those responsible in those functional areas. But that in itself has been a challenge, because we've always included all leadership and management and input from all of our teammates. It's difficult in an EOS structure to really have that engagement, even down to what are called level 10 meetings in other areas of the firm. But it has put us on everyone on a level playing field to understand the why, where we're at. There's something called a vision traction organizer
Mm-hmm.
that allows the entire firm to be on the same page at all times, no matter whether you showed up and you started next Monday or you've been here for 8 years. Everybody understands the same things. We all speak the same language. But I think at the end of the day, I'm I'm not big on groupthink. I value everybody's individual perspective. I will tell you, internally, I think we have people that are right of center, left of center, in the center on a political spectrum. We have everybody that delivers on our clients' missions for different reasons. But at the end of the day, we are united by mission and common core values. And those common core values aren't values that are such as, I think the world works this way, or it should work that way.
Mm,
It is absolutely about mission and delivering for our customers and that client success.
love that. I love it. Uh, you're obviously the leaders at the top. You guys set the tone, right, and the direction. For the in the past 10 years with your partner, can you
Yeah.
share some like lessons learned, right? Because partnerships are hard. It can be hard, or for
Yeah.
some it can be really easy. How did that go for you?
Yeah. It's early on, it was relatively easy,
Mm,
uh, and it was relatively easy because we were flat. There were lack of process. We were all in it, everybody at the same time. And as the firm has grown, it has become more challenging. It's kind of like having kids, right? Little
hmm.
kids, little problems. Bigger kids, bigger problems.
Yeah.
And I think that's true of business at
Mm,
times also. Not that, as you're starting, there aren't plenty of things to keep you up at night. But I think when you start introducing other senior leaders with influence on the business, and it's no longer just your partner and yourself
mm,
making those calls, it can become difficult. And I think that it has been easier for us because we have different skill sets. And I, I probably, if you want to look at it as a fault, I'm an eternal optimist. Like, I believe it can be done. Let's put our heads together and we'll figure it out. And I think that my partner, rightly so, is very pragmatic and exposes risk where there's real risk, or things to consider that I would probably brush aside and say, well, of course that's there. But, you know, um, so I think from that standpoint, it's definitely been some give and take that
mm,
way.
mm,
At the end of the day, though, I respect the hell out of my partner.
mm.
Frankly, I look at her almost as a sister than I do just a business partner,
Sure.
and I care about her that way. But I will say that I care about every other person in this firm the same way
Mm,
as it's deeply personal to me, um, for everybody to be finding purpose and waking up every day to do their very best and enjoy what they do. Life is short, and
mhm.
I don't care whether you're working that first window in McDonald's and making change, or you're doing something other. But if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you should be finding something else. And I think that here at Provisio, we've found real joy in delivering on the missions of our customers that then become ours.
Yes, we often, as business leaders, we often see, or sometimes we see people who interview well and then talk the talk, but then
Yeah,
come on board and it's different, right? How long
yeah.
does it take for you to figure out, these intangibles, the passion you mentioned, the inspiration you mentioned, the character you mentioned? How long does it take for you to kind of figure that out in a new hire? And how do
Yeah,
you do it?
I you know, as a services company where our
Sure.
teammates are our capital within the firm, I wish I could say we had a more scientific method to ensuring that that's happening,
Mm,
right? I think that sometimes looking at data in different tests and all those other things as you're in the interview process, they can ward off some really bad mistakes early.
mm,
But at the end of the day, I mean, there is a certain gut element to character. And when I think about it, there's always a fine line of what you can professionally ask of individuals as you're having those early conversations with them. But I really do look at ties to friendship, ties to family, um, impressions of former teammates, some of the biggest challenges that they've overcome. And hopefully, it's not just about them, it's about what they were working towards with
mm,
others around them.
mm.
So I think you start to look at character that way. I'm always impressed with education backgrounds and great experience, but I can tell you that we've worked and hired with people from the big four consulting firms
Sure.
and all the other things, and it's not always going to be a great fit. Not everybody is prepared to be exposed on a daily basis to having accountability and delivering. And I think for me, kind of like with attitude and effort, anybody that isn't prepared for their own individual accountability, and most important in any leadership role, if you're not prepared to lift up and mentor those people around you, then kind of like, again, there is no leadership
Sure.
if nobody will follow you.
Travis, who are your mentors?
Yeah. Gosh, certainly my grandpa was an incredible mentor, hardworking farmer, his whole life. That's been a mentor to me. Professionally, I had mentioned that salesperson that had started with us, that took me under his wing and showed me how to sell and how to do it. Has been a wonderful mentor for me. I don't look at mentors as just like senior people.
Mhm.
I take mentorship from snippets of interactions with people,
Mm.
that I try to glean what I can from each of those. And frankly, some of them from a mentor perspective were not great interactions, but I learned a lot,
Mm.
right? Like, this is how you don't treat people. This is how you wouldn't want to interact with a customer.
Mm.
And I think those lessons are just as valuable from a mentorship perspective as somebody that's inspiring, who's been there
Mm.
and done it, and you can bounce ideas off of. I think, kind of like the failing fast scenario, that you want to get all those bad lessons you can.
I share that perspective, and even peer mentorship, right? And even just reading books and podcasts, and like the
Yeah.
mentoring you receive from there, and how people think, and just the different ways things can happen and different perspectives you can take. So yes, I agree. It is the snippets. It may all of those things may create a character or an avatar of some sort, but
Yeah.
overall, yeah, you can get inspiration from variety
Yeah.
of resources.
I-
Do you,
And I, I've more recently gotten engaged, and certainly from the CEO circle.
mm,
I just went through the Goldman Sachs
mm.
10K program,
How did that
meetings.
go?
So
Yeah, how was that different from CEO circle? I'm curious.
it was incredible.
Mm,
The content in the curriculum was from Babson College, which
mm,
I had no idea how wonderful their business school was.
yeah.
And their entrepreneurship program, just phenomenal. So we had Babson, their curriculum, instructors. It was a very structured learning experience from an entrepreneurship perspective.
Oh, interesting.
And I would highly recommend it
Mm,
for anybody that would be interested in learning, continued learning. But I learned from so many people just in those environments that were just phenomenal.
mm,
I'll also say that, I learned from my teammates that, perhaps have 3 years of experience, and we can talk about something and they expose a different perspective that I hadn't really thought of,
mm,
or working with a client that's brought a different perspective. So,
mm.
um, yeah, it's been great from a learning perspective that way. You can imagine I love reading and doing and on all those things, but it's one that I haven't had, just for instance, just one mentor that's shaped what my future has looked like.
Yeah, really cool to hear that. I, as we're kind of wrapping up here, Travis, I'm curious from your data-driven background, and your role as building a business as an entrepreneur. I'm seeing multiple entities grow.
Yeah.
What do business owners or business leaders do wrong when they're assembling their teams and cultures and organizations?
Yeah, it's a great question, Freddie. And I think, instead of saying that done wrong, I think it's things that they could improve on.
Sure.
I oftentimes there are financial constraints in terms of who you can bring on
Fair.
to perform certain functions. And I think that me starting from scratch. November 1st of 2017, almost 8 years ago, coming up here on Saturday, it was just Eric and I, and there was nobody else. And building around us, we did that quickly and with stability from family and friends and colleagues that we trusted, that were willing to take a chance on the firm, right? And I think that looking at those that you trust to be stable forces versus the quick hit because of some background, they've been there, they've done it, they've done all those things. I'm for the stability side of it because I think that stability brings momentum versus quick hits. So I am forever grateful. We have, as I said earlier, family and friends that are here at the firm, some of which some backgrounds in consulting, some not. I'll say my sister as an example, ex-military, linguist, interrogator, did her time on the Beltway afterwards, but came to work here and in technology and as a business analyst and project manager and all those other things. There wasn't a lot of background there, but I'll tell you that her commitment to the success of the firm was unmatched. And that's not just her story. It's probably 30 others that are here at the firm, and having that commitment to client success and knowing that there isn't anything else without that client success.
I asked this Rudy Cazares.
Yeah,
I'm sure you know.
great dude.
Great dude, great dude. I mean, all of these guys I talk to, really great people. But he talks about hiring family. I'm like, Rudy, how do you do it? How do
You nuts?
how do you do it, right? Because I mean, I've hired family as well,
Yeah.
but people can go really wrong and astray, but with hiring
Yeah.
family. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's accountability. All three of
Yeah.
my kids work here at the firm,
Mm,
and in different areas.
mm,
My son works in customer success and has always been interested in others succeeding and certainly has the
mm,
technical acumen to do that. It's a perfect fit for him. My middle daughter went to school, marketing. She leads our marketing efforts here, but that's her expertise, right? My youngest daughter came from out east and statistics major at GW, got into data science when she was there, and now is a key integral part of our data services team. And it's like they all belong in those areas. I will also say that if any three of them, any one of the three, were not performing in a certain function, I would let them go because the firm, it wouldn't be fair for the firm and it wouldn't be fair, most importantly, to our customers.
mm.
And it sounds awful. My mom still supports our training efforts here. And if there ever came a point in time that my mom wasn't delivering client satisfaction, it would be time to give her a hug and say, time's up. So
Yeah,
I, I think the
vicious, but
accountability part of it,
yeah,
Freddie,
you're
is the
right.
part that appears to be tough. But
Mm.
if that groundwork is set that says if this isn't working for you or for me, most importantly the client, then we will always have respect and that would be it.
Yeah, absolutely. 1000%. 1000%. It's the accountability. It's the constant feedback. This experience probably makes you a better father, right? Better son, right? It
Yeah,
probably, yeah, you go through that as well. So,
yeah.
um,
And I don't even really like to talk about work. They will have like to talk about work when we're outside the office. I really
yeah,
don't.
yeah,
Um, but I couldn't be more proud.
yeah.
I think early on it was um, if we had our own general store and we said it was a family run general store,
Mm,
everybody'd high five and say how great that
mm,
was, that you all work together and it's wonderful.
mm, mm.
And then you get into an IT consulting environment and it's like, initially, I really didn't want to talk about it. I needed every single one of my teammates, including my family, but it wasn't as well accepted. And nowadays it's like, yeah, we are, and we're kicking butt. and they're doing wonderful work. And there's nothing more satisfying professionally than watching folks grow and
Agreed.
grow together
Agreed.
and have deep ties the success of the firm and the customers.
Yeah.
And that's all you can ask for.
Super cool. Lastly, I'm curious, what is the best advice you have for a veteran entrepreneur looking to scale or looking to grow their team? What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. I as uncomfortable as it is at times, and it's no fun, um, you should have your nose in those numbers,
Mm,
and you better be able to sell,
mm,
because the delivery of that product or service, I think you can figure out. But selling and understanding your numbers and not over leveraging yourselves. I bootstrapped the firm. We still have no debt today, well funded, no board, no any of those other things. It's possible. You can do it. Um, it takes some grit,
mm,
but I think every veteran entrepreneur has that grit.
mm.
Um, and I only say that because oftentimes we're chasing money and funding and all of those other things without understanding that you can bootstrap it. It can be done, but you better have your nose in those numbers, and you better be able to sell.
Sound, sound advice. Very practical advice as well. Thank you, Travis, for a wonderful time. Thank you for the words of wisdom you shared. And for our listeners, now go build your A team. Thanks.
Thanks, Freddie.